Okay. Welcome, everyone. We have a lovely webinar lined up for you today. We'll just take a few minutes to let people roll in before we get started.
Man, this is exciting. We've got Ann back here and David here, Debbie, Jill, Jimmy. Man, I can't keep up. This is awesome. Thank you guys for being here. We are so excited for our meeting today, our webinar. We're super excited you're all here.
Yeah, especially taking the time during a busy work day, I'm sure. We really appreciate you tuning in. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of people watch the recording later as well. I'll go ahead and intro our speakers today. We have Bob Spiel and Bryton Niel. So Bob is the CEO slash president of Spiel Consulting and Dentist Partner Pros. His passion is building high performance teams that deliver exceptional service while doing more in less time with less stress. His firm, Spiel Consulting and Dentist Partner Pros, transform general and specialty dental practices by building leaders at all levels, with a special focus on building leaders among owners and associate dentists. Bob had over 25 years of business experience before getting into dentistry, including being a hospital and surgical center CEO, as well as an operations director for two mid-cap firms. This taught him to see each need in a dental practice with a systems orientation. Using this approach over the past 10 years, his firm has achieved a remarkable 90% success rate in searching for, hiring, and retaining associate dentists compared to the dismal 75% failure rate the dental industry has as a track record. So super incredible results there. He sees this as the number one threat to the continuation of private practice dentistry and aims to change that. He is also a faculty member for Dr. Gordon Christensen, where he teaches a breakthrough course on leadership each fall called Igniting the Leader in You, as well as the author of Flip Your Focus, Igniting People, Profits, and Performance Through Upside Down Leadership, which you can check out more at flipyourfocusbook.com. And then, of course, we have Bryton Niel as well. So I'll give a little bit of his background. His passion is impacting as many lives as possible by creating and supporting successful businesses. He does this by helping create successful teams founded in communication, upside down leadership, and by creating clear expectations, goals, and metrics. His firm, Dentist Partner Pros, is taking the dental, we've got that same lovely statistic from 75% to 90%. Bryton has now helped build two startups over the last 5 years, creating lasting seven-figure businesses. He is now determined to change the way the dental industry hires, onboards, trains, and builds teams. Using his training as a certified / authorized everything disc partner, it has enabled Bryton to bring new insights to his clients and teams that they did not understand before, thereby unlocking more of their potential and allowing them to grow even faster. He sees this expertise along with his experience in startups as his secret sauce that he is bringing to the dental industry. And he is the chief operating officer at the Dentist Partner Pros. So with that, I will turn the time over to our lovely speakers today.
Thank you, Lindsay. We're really grateful that eAssist would sponsor this webinar. And we are, like Bryton said, we are so excited to be able to be with all of you today and share, really about 15 years of experience in terms of how you can take what has really been a failure generally throughout the whole industry and flip it to a great success. So here's our promise. By the end of today or the end of this hour, we will want you to know exactly what you need to do to hire your dream associate. I mean, that's our commitment to you. And who is this for? It's really for two audiences. And this is who we find that we work with the most when we're engaged in this type of work. The first is high-performing private practice dentists who have reached a point where they know that they've got to be able to hire an associate. And they're looking for a rock star to come in. And someone that you can trust with your team, your patients, and your practice. That's really the first group that this is for. The second group really is for those that are more at the end of their career, that are looking at a 5-year transition or so, and that they want to be able to make sure that their patients are cared for, just as they have cared for them. And they don't want to do what in the industry we call a barn door transaction, but instead they bring somebody in, mentor, help them get to know their patient base, and then work their way out of the practice eventually, or remaining to stay for a day or two a week, however their career designs want to go. So that's who this is for. Now, these are the very same steps that we have used with a number of doctors, but there are four in particular today that we're going to highlight. Dr. Matt Harmon in Phoenix, Dr. Doug Green in Minneapolis, Isaac Navarro, who is in Visalia, California, and Dr. Julie Babcock, who is in Kansas City. This process works everywhere. And it's because, it's not bound by, well, gee, will it work in Texas, but not work in New England? It's designed to customize the associate who's going to come inside a practice, and hence it is really valuable wherever your practice is, however large your practice is, and wherever you are in your growth path. And ultimately, from a doctor perspective, what they're hoping to do and really have to do is to increase their wealth. And what does that mean? Wealth is really the ability, like a good friend of mine, Dr. Chuck Blakeman, has said before, that the ability to choose what to do with both your time and your money. Okay. And ultimately, this is why most people own a business, to help them become and lead a lifestyle where they can make choices for themselves instead of feel like those choices are just being handed over to them. So, Lindsay's already gone through and explained a little bit more about who we are and what we're all about. I've been in dentistry 15 years. Bryton joined me 3 years ago. We're having a blast, taking the industry by storm with what we're doing. And our mission really is to help busy, high-performing private practice owners get off the hamster wheel. Why? So they can get their lives back and find the right associate who fits, stays, makes the practice money, and eventually becomes a partner. I mean, that's our ultimate goal, is to bring on associates who are really partner quality and have that whole ownership mentality and want to be able to contribute not only for the short term, but the long term of the practice. And, our results really, gang, speak for themselves. Over the past 10 plus years, we've been helping practices do that. I've been doing this specifically within my consulting realm. And then we launched Dentist Partner Pros to really take this and scale it throughout dentistry. But believe it or not, we've got a 90% success rate of hiring associate doctors and having them stay. While the industry, as we mentioned, and you'll hear this just one more time, it's a 75% failure rate. And why? Well, we'll get into that, but there are certain things that we haven't been doing right. We only work in dentistry, by the way, with this. We're not venturing into medicine or any other part, because we really believe and are passionate about the fact that we've got to provide solutions to private practice to be able to help private practice really continue as a not only viable, but a strategic and most important part of dentistry. So when we're saying that, if there anybody on the call today that works for DSO, take this information and run with it. We hope that it helps you, but it was our choice a while ago to say we're really going to leverage this for private practice, because we feel like that's where it's needed the most. And we've done this with every specialty as well as GPs. So it works across boundaries within dentistry. So this will help two type of doctors. Like I said just a little bit ago, the ones whose practice is growing and it frankly is starting to outgrow them. Okay. Typically what this does is this leads to burnout and an overwhelming desire to get your life back, or that seasoned practice owner who's beginning to look to transition out and wants to have a clear pathway to be able to make sure their patients and themselves are taken care of successfully. So to begin with, we get asked this question all the time. Am I ready for an associate? How do I know if this is something that I really want to do? And, it can be driven by career goals. It can be driven by the simple need that, like a client of ours in Colorado who knows she's got about a 4-year window. She wants to land that perfect doctor who's going to be a great fit. But for those doctors that are 5 to 10 years into it, they've grown in spite of themselves, they're running faster than they know how, These are the telltale signs that we have found that say it may be time to consider looking at bringing on another doctor to help with your volume. And the first, frankly, is greater emotional stress. Because the faster and faster you run within your practice, the more emotional stress just becomes a way of life. Dentistry is demanding emotionally, physically, mentally, and even spiritually. And that emotional stress, most of all, is kind of the first indication that you're burning the candle at both ends, and it's time to look at finding another solution to the volume within your practice and being able to handle the patients that you have. And this emotional stress, frankly, leads to a condition that I termed a few years ago called drive-by dentistry. It's a phenomenon that both of these groups of doctors engage in. And this has no judgment within it whatsoever, but it's just this case of seeing a patient during a hygiene exam, and that doctor subconsciously looks at that patient's needs and say, you know what, I think I can wait 6 months, or we're going to put a watch on it because I'm just so busy right now that even if I treatment planned it, it'd be 2 months before this person came in. And so this leads to plateau production levels. And then it also is a sign when you're booked out too far. One of our clients, frankly, was booked out 4 months before he engaged us to help work and find an associate for him. And man, that stress alone is enormous when a doctor realizes that I can't get people in as soon as I know they need it or I would like it. So this leads to feelings really like you're starting to go through the motions. You get greater unscheduled treatment because you're really not trying to drive to the rim, so to speak, and make that basket. You're just trying to go through the motions and get the lowest hanging fruit that you possibly can out of your schedule. This then leads to what we kind of call the patient revolving door, which is this other phenomenon where you're bringing patients in, but they're leaving just as quickly simply because you don't have the personal capacity to be able to take care of their needs. And so in this webinar today, we're going to help those doctors as well as office managers and other leaders within a practice that look and say, you know what, we think it may be time, or maybe we know it's time. We want to discuss first how the old way of hiring doesn't work and frankly is way more expensive than anybody thinks. Secondly, how to know exactly who's going to fit with your practice, then how to find, recruit, and vet candidates to make sure that you've got the ideal associate in. And then lastly, what do we do to be able to create win-win offers so both you and the associate feel excited to work together? So to summarize, the old way of hiring doesn't work anymore. And frankly, it never did to begin with. But it's got this shocking failure rate within 1 year. And the reasons for that are multifaceted, but they really just boil down to this point, that the relationship between a doctor and another doctor within a practice is so intimate that you've got to make sure that there's a great fit across so many boundaries to see that they will, frankly, like each other, work well with each other, communicate with each other, and trust each other's dentistries. Because what we find and why, frankly, associateships fail, besides this fact that sometimes, rarely, but sometimes a doctor thinks if I just hire this associate, I'm going to get busier automatically. Or they try to take the gravy and just leave, the basic stuff to the associate. But really, it's because of a difference in values, philosophy, surprisingly but true, how they handle money, and differences in communication styles. And all of these factors play together after you've put all this effort into finding an associate, bringing them on board, onboarding them, training them. Everything just starts to swirl down the drain. And you get this huge sucking feeling of like, man, I did not enjoy that experience. So why we're here today is to keep that sucking feeling from happening and to give you the tools to be able to do it right.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick, Bob. I'd be curious to know if you've experienced an associateship failure. Type in the chat yes or failure. I'm sure it is super, super common. We run into doctors almost just about every single day that have gone through 3, 4, 5, 6 associateships, and it's just this revolving door, right? So if the old way doesn't work, how do you change it? So we're going to be discussing the 4 steps to hiring your dream associate. First, we're going to talk about how to identify the ideal candidate avatar. Then you'll learn where to find them, how to vet them, and how to create a win-win competitive offer. So first question is, how do you know who is the right fit for your practice? Well, we'd like to introduce you to Dr. Matt Harmon. He was mentioned earlier, but he's out in Phoenix area. He was this doctor number 1, burnt out, burning himself on both ends of the candle. He seriously was working so hard. And really, it was because he wanted to provide the best service for as many patients as he could. But his practice started to outgrow him. And so he finally decided to hire an associate. At first, he just thought, well, hey, let me just find someone that I may know. He had an old dental school buddy that he thought might work well. Turns out, after he asked for some help in coming up with this ideal avatar, they were 2 total opposites. If you go back to why associateships fail, they viewed money different, they communicated different, they had different values and different philosophy. It would not have worked. Okay, it would not have worked. So what did Matt do instead to find his dream associate? First, he identified who is the ideal fit. So he thought of both clinical, and this is what you should do. Think of both clinical and personality traits. Both are important. Okay, we need a dentist that can both keep up with us clinically. If you have specific procedures or technology skills, whatever it is, they need to have those, but also personality. You know, are they more mild-mannered, or are they excited? Do they bring optimism, or are they more level-headed? These are things that are important, okay? So then once you've kind of personally gone through the experience of coming up with this ideal who's going to fit, ask your team for their feedback, and then create a list of characteristics to use as your benchmark moving forward. This really, what this looks like, it's a list written out on a document, a Google Sheet, whatever it is, between typically 15 to 30 different characteristics. Okay, make sure you have clear definitions, you know what they mean, and use those as your benchmark moving forward. Okay, so we've identified who is the ideal fit. You've got this new ideal avatar written out on a piece of paper. So now, where do you find them? Well, meet Dr. Doug Green. He is a holistic fee-for-service practice owner out in the Minneapolis area. He's a mentor for Gordon Christensen's PCC in Provo, Utah. And he went through this process and realized, because he is a holistic fee-for-service practice, he really needed someone particular. However, he was so swamped with taking care of his patients and his team and his growing practice, building a new office, all these things, that he didn't know where to find good candidates. So this is what he did and what you can do too. So first, he figured out where, looking at our ideal candidate, do they need 5-10 years experience? Can we have someone right out of school? Could they be in a residency program? These are things that you'd want to include in that ideal avatar, and figure out where they would be. So you're going to find candidates in 3 main sources, right? They're either in school, they're in a residency program, or they're actively working now. That's where you're going to find people. Another one probably on here, it's a lot harder to find, but would also be military. You can find great candidates coming out of the military, but that's a whole nother source. So once you've identified where they might be, start to tell everyone you know. Dentistry is a small world, and growing to the point where you get to bring on an associate, that is something that's exciting, hopefully something you can be proud of. I know for some people, it creates a lot of anxiety or nervousness of saying, hey, we're opening the doors to bring on another doctor. However, sales reps, people here at eAssist, or your supply rep, whatever it is, like, they know people. Tell everyone you know that you're looking for someone. Then take the time to write a really great job ad emphasizing pay and benefits. Put those at the very tippy top of that job ad, because that's what candidates care about the most. Once you've got that written out and proofed, post that on all major job boards, including Indeed, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and dental-specific boards. We like Dentist Job Connect and other local state ADA websites. These are all great places you can find really great candidates. Most people are looking online today for jobs. In order to set yourself apart, make sure you emphasize pay and benefits, and if you can, put in a budget to make sure that you're advertising for the job. The other second half of this, though, is watch those job boards like a hawk. Check them every single day. Reply to candidates as soon as you can, because even if you have them out there and you get candidates, you only check it once a week. Those people have applied to 3, 4, 5 other jobs, and they're already interviewing. So you have to stay top of mind. Okay. All right. So we've identified what. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Bryton, if I could just also add one more point, pay and benefits is really important, but it's also great to be able to have something that helps differentiate your practice from other practices. And so once again, like working with your team to come up with what those characteristics are of the person who's going to fit here, have something in the ad that also describes what's special about your practice. Ask in a team meeting, what's our secret sauce? What makes us so unique? And why would somebody want to work here? And make sure that you also highlight those sort of things, because anything you can do to stand out from the rest of the crowd will help you.
Yeah, I would really look at your job ad as almost a sales letter to recruits. It's a recruiting letter. Hey, how do we get people to be interested in us? Because there's a lot of really great practices out there, but what makes yours great for them? So, okay, we've talked about how to identify the ideal avatar, where to start to find them, and now how to vet them. Well, meet Dr. Navarro. He actually, fun fact, we actually helped hire and place him in a practice a few years ago, and he just purchased that practice from the previous owner. So he had gone through this process, identified who was his ideal fit, started to tell everyone he knew, and it was awesome. He actually started to get candidates from his local area that wanted to work with him because people really, really respected him. So he had people flocking to him saying, hey, I want to work with you. So he needed to figure out a way to know, hey, are these people actually my ideal fit? Are they going to succeed in my practice? So once you've gone through the same process, here's what we recommend doing. Go through a very intentional vetting process. Do not just say, hey, you look interesting, come visit our practice today. You're setting yourself up for failure and chaos with your team. So first, before you have them just come on site and see your team, please conduct a few, if possible, multiple behavioral-based interviews. And we'll talk what that means a little bit more here in a sec. Check multiple references, professional references. We like the people that can talk and speak to their hand skills. What are they like in the chair, and what do their results really look like? If possible, perform a background check, check out their social media. And if you're familiar with them, use some sort of personality test. Like you heard earlier, we love DISC from Wiley. I know a lot of people like Colby Strength Finder. Whatever you're familiar or comfortable with, use it. It just gives you a great insight. Then once you've gone through all those steps and you feel like, hey, this person might actually be a really great fit for us, have them come on site for a day and have the team meet them, spend time with them. And then once that you've had a successful on-site day with the candidate there, whether that's shadowing or just being there for lunch, whatever it is, sit with your team afterwards and ask for their honest feedback if they feel like they're a good fit or not. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is to use the team, because ultimately the team is the one that supports this new person, buoys them up, talks to them with the patients, and really they're the ones that create success for this new associate. Okay, so what does it look like to conduct behavioral-based interviewing? If you're not familiar with it, it's really quite simple. Prepare interview questions ahead of time, if you can, based on your ideal avatar characteristics. Okay, so go through that list and say, what questions would I like to ask to know how I know if someone is careful of that. Only ask open-ended questions about a candidate's previous experience. And then the past is the greatest indicator of the future. So if we can learn more about their previous experience, how they've handled working with patients, how they've approached CE, what's their favorite type of procedure, stuff like that, it can be the greatest indicator of how they might fit in in the practice. So,
and Bryton, if this is something people aren't familiar with that are on the call, you can frankly go online and just type in behavioral-based interview questions and find, a kind of a catalog of those, tie them to your characteristics that you have said, this is the person who's going to fit.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one of the biggest issues that we find with interviewing, not just in dentistry, but everywhere, is that we're afraid of silence. And so we try to fill it with words. And so when you interview a candidate this way, let them know that silence is okay, that you really want to find out from their past an answer to this question. And so give them 30 seconds just to think, and then listen for what they say and what they don't say, and how well they meet that characteristic that you are interviewing them on.
Yeah. Great. And then Robin, I saw that in the chat. Thank you so much. Yeah, you cannot hire or disqualify someone based on their personal social media. That is personal information. However, it's something you can use to get to know someone. Social media profiles are typically public. And so if you want to learn more about what your candidate's like, then it's a great place. But yeah, you cannot hire or disqualify based on someone's personal views or beliefs. All right. So once you've gone through this process, the vetting process, steps 1 through 5, you've vetted them, you've interviewed them, referenced them, gather all that information and actually score them on a scale of 1 to 10, how much they fit your ideal candidate characteristics. Add up that total score and it'll give you an objective version of if this person is actually going to be a good fit in your practice or not. This process is so clarifying. And it starts to take out some of that emotion of hiring, because hiring really is an emotional decision, especially when it's an associate level position, maybe someone that's going to become a partner or owner in the practice. You want to make sure you have the right fit for who's going to fit. So begin with the end in mind, identify the avatar, go find them, start to vet them, and add up that score to get a very clear picture. So once you've gone through the process and you actually have a candidate you're excited to give an offer to, how to create a win-win competitive offer. So meet Dr. Julie Babcock out of Kansas City. She is also a holistic fee-for-service practice owner. So she went through the same process of identifying who was going to fit. She had some great candidates, did the on-site, and found someone that she was really excited to give an offer to. However, she did not want to get taken advantage of, but she wanted to stay competitive, right? You want to stay competitive. You want to make sure it's win-win. And frankly, she just had no idea what that even meant. She'd been solo practitioner for so long that she didn't really know what was going to be best for her. So she needed a win-win offer. So here's what you can do and what we'd recommend as just a simple base standpoint. You first need to identify your overhead. So this is really all expenses before doctor owner is paid, except for amortization and depreciation. Okay, this will help you to know what you can actually afford to pay. Once you identify that, what's really competitive is if you can pay between 30 to 34% of adjusted production or collections for GPs. And then if you go into specialties, that only goes up from there. If you get it up 35%, some practices have the overhead and the ability to pay even more than that. But it's really important to understand where's my ceiling so that I can actually stay profitable. If your overhead's at 75% and you're offering to pay someone 30%, you're going to lose money every single time you pay that associate. So that's just an important thing to clarify. Next, be sure to include benefits in your offer. This would include, if you're interested, mentorship, if you're bringing on a younger dentist, and be specific on how you plan to actually fulfill that mentorship. That's how you set yourself apart. Lots of practices offer mentorship, but they don't actually have a plan to do it other than, hey, you're in the office with me all day. Include some sort of CE stipend. If it's important to you for your team to be upskilling and gaining skills, we like to do a 50-50 match where you set a max budget for the year and then you meet 50-50. So the associate puts in some and the practice owner puts in some. That seems to be more win-win. As well as, if you can afford it, health benefits, whether that's even just a stipend or formal benefits if you offer it to all your employees, and then a path to ownership. If you really want this person to become an owner or a partner in your practice, be sure to include what that looks like, whether that's a 2, 4, 5-year window. Include that in your offer. It's really what people want to see. So now
Bryton,
go ahead.
In saying that, though, just one quick caveat. The offer itself is not guaranteeing ownership, just to be clear. What the offer is doing in the associate agreement is saying, if you meet these expectations, there's an opportunity to be able to actually buy in up to a certain percentage.
Yes, good clarifying point. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the 4 steps for hiring your dream associate. We've identified who is going to fit by creating that ideal avatar, where to find them, how to vet them, and how to create a win-win offer. So what should you do now? Well, you really have 3 options, okay? You can either do nothing, do it yourself and try to find the time, or you can hire a guide. Option number 1. All the options include both financial and opportunity costs. Let's talk about some of the failed associateship hidden costs. These are costs that we don't talk about or even really think about until you're the dentist who just had an associate leave or just had to fire them, and you're sitting there dealing with these hidden costs, these really tough things. So the cost of rework, if you hire the wrong person and they end up leaving and you have to do rework where they're whatever treatment they did was not up to par and you have to go back and redo it. The stress of a broken relationship, when you bring someone into your practice, especially an associate level position, they become part of your family, right? They are someone that you trust with, confide in. And so when you have that broken relationship, it often leads to a loss of team members, loss of patients, a loss of rapport with referring providers, and all the associates' unfinished treatment plans. These are just costs that we don't talk about, but they could be valued anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 if you really wanted to put a dollar amount on it, if not more. So the do nothing option, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. This is the right option for you if you're content running faster and faster with no relief in sight. This is the type of person who likes living in the chaos and they're okay with it, right? What's the cost of doing nothing? Dollars lost in opportunity cost and missed opportunities. For example, if you keep having this associateship revolving door, or you decide not to bring on an associate, you're just missing out on being able to help your patients and team even more. The other costs are constant emotional stress, not having enough time for patients, staff, or personal time. The physical stress of having to work from sun up to sundown, it hurts your body. You end up adding more days, to the point where we've seen doctors do 5.5 days a week just to make sure that they're taking care of their patients. All in the process, they're shortening their career lifespan because they're not taking care of themselves. Plus, as a result, damaged relationships, whether that's with team members or family members or whoever, because you just keep trying to run faster and faster. Now, there is another option. It's start to figure out, how do I systematize more? How do I make a more effective practice? But that's a training for another day. Okay. But as far as associateships, the cost of doing nothing is expensive. Okay. The cost for or do it yourself option. Okay. You can follow the process that we've just talked about and change the way you hire. You can hire someone who fits your practice needs and culture and challenge the 75% failure rate. How much will this actually cost you in time and opportunity? Because the process that we just mapped out is, let's be honest, it's time intensive. It is intentional. You have to take the time to go through each process. And what ends up typically happening is we see people skip steps because they aren't willing to make the time. Because this process, if done right, can actually take up to 150 hours. How do you find that time? Or would you find that time? 150 hours. I know some of you are like, there's no way. We can say confidently, as experts who have done this so many times, this process takes at least 150 hours. If you haven't done it before and you haven't gone through the process before, it probably takes more. Okay. The reality is people don't spend that amount of time because they're not hiring right. They're skipping processes, therefore leading to this 75% failure rate. Okay. It is expensive. If you had 150 hours of production time at an average of like $500 per hour of production, that's $75,000 alone just to do it once. Okay. It is expensive and it is hard. Not to say it's not possible if you have more time than money. Obviously, like, use the time to find the right person for your practice. So what's the other option? Obviously, the other option is to find a guide with expertise and experience to guarantee results. Just like you would go to a specialist if you need specific help with something in the mouth, whether it's a really big case and you need an oral surgeon to come help take a tooth out or whatever it is, you find a specialist and a guide with guaranteed expertise and results. So obviously, this is where we come into play. We're introducing the DPP associate hiring system. We don't plan to pitch this very much, but we wanted to know that it is an option out there for you. If you don't have 150 hours of time you want to spend following this process, but you still want to hire the right person. So the DPP associate hiring system is the done-for-you white glove service that's transforming how dentists like you hire your ideal associate, one who stays, fits, and makes the practice money. The associate hiring system has taken the 75% failure rate and turned it into a 90% success rate in the last 10 plus years. So the associate hiring system answers all the 4 following questions, which we've already dove into. So first question is how to be 100% certain you identify your ideal fit. We call this the ideal associate blueprint. This gives you a crystal clear picture without you having to go through the process of understanding who is going to be your right fit. We come on site, we interview the team, we perform disc analysis, we use surveys, all this stuff to get a crystal clear picture to then summarize an ideal associate candidate avatar blueprint. It's an amazing experience. I love having clients sit down and see it and say, wow, I'm so glad we did this. Now I really understand who's going to fit in my practice. How to identify or how to find your ideal candidate with little to no effort. This is where the relentless recruiting machine. At Dentist Partner Pros, we are proud to say that we have a full recruiting team that specializes in finding the best candidates for the best price. We have access to tools and resources that frankly just normal practices don't, because we can share those costs to lots of different practices. So we use our recruiting machine to help our candidates not have to worry, our clients not have to worry about it at all. We take care of the entire process for them. We do screening calls and all that stuff to make sure we get we go through the relentless recruiting machine. Then how to eliminate doubt to know that you found the ideal candidate. This is the intensive vetting process where it takes what we've talked about earlier through doing multiple behavioral-based interviews, screening calls, background checks, disc analysis, and then summarized in a very easy to digest, clean candidate fit report. We provide all that information and we do it completely for our clients so that they can take care of their patients and their team while we take care of all the busy work of going through this vetting process. Frankly, we have more time and we have more practice and we're typically better at it than our clients because I love what Dr. Green said. If you can find the testimonial that we've done with him, but he says, I just didn't know what questions to ask. And that's one of the things what we really specialize in is asking great questions. Lastly, how to prepare and negotiate a win-win offer. This is the win-win offer framework where we actually sit down with the client and do a P&L analysis. We go really crystal clear to help them understand what's going to be competitive for them and their practice. And then we actually create and prepare the letter of intent and the associate agreement and negotiate it on their behalf. Takes away that awkward transition where sometimes practice owners don't want to jump into this negotiation bit. We take care of that for them. So the associate hiring system includes the ideal associate blueprint, the white glove recruiting machine, the intensive vetting process, the win-win offer framework. And it's actually we didn't talk about it here, but we have 2 guarantees that back our services, the associate assurance guarantee and the pay for performance promise. So enough about us, but really quick, what does it look like when you use the associate hiring system? Well, I'm going to turn this over to Bob and he's going to speak to this moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Bryton. Awesome job. And thanks for summarizing what we do and love to do, frankly. It's a passion. And I hope that really comes through. I mean, Dr. Harmon today is a totally different man than Dr. Harmon a few years ago. He hired an associate. We helped him do that. He's on the path to buy-in and they're in a remarkable place in Sun City West. And they both are very, very skilled doctors. But frankly, he was producing in his first year as an associate $1 million. That's not a number that you typically see, but it is possible. And the reality is, if he hadn't hired Dr. Chesser, that would have just gone somewhere else. We talked earlier about opportunity cost. That's one of the things that happens when you reach this level of busyness that you can't contain it all. And yet you're fearful of, oh man, how can I know that I'm going to bring in the right person? Well, why we're here today is to let you know there is a way to know that. We don't have to let that fear drive ourselves into the ground with this thought of, I don't think I can ever find the right person, so I'm just going to drive myself harder. So that allowed Dr. Harmon to spend more time with his family, go on vacation. They just finished their dream home. He's moving into it this week. His life is totally different and his practice is totally different because of this one decision that he made and then partnering with us to be able to make sure that he had the right person. Doug Green, he built a new office. He's got 2 great associates now that we helped him place both. Their production figures are phenomenal. He's growing this year by more than double digits. Again, he's spending more time. He was actually able to carve off 1 day a week now where he's not in production. He's only there mentoring these associates, so he's working Monday through Wednesday. And he's a mentor for Dr. Gordon Christensen, who, if you've heard of him, he's been called the godfather of modern dentistry. And he spends a lot of time now as one of Gordon's faculty members being at PCC events and contributing to that because he loves private practice dentistry. He wants to see it succeed. And frankly, he just spends a lot more time doing the things that he loves. This is the only doctor that I've ever seen has a set of drums up in his office, and it's a complete set of drums like you would find in a Bon Jovi concert. I mean, this is not just a pared down set. And, he loves it, but he has the time now to do it because he made this decision and decided, you know what? It's time, and I'm going to use the right process to make this happen. Isaac Namarro, he just hired 2 excellent associates. He's got more time for his family, and I think that's a theme that you're hearing over and over again. More time, more time, more time. But it didn't hurt the practice. In fact, it helped build the practice, and that's what's most exciting. Because frankly, as Lindsay brought up at the beginning of this webinar, one of the things that I love to do and Bryton loves to do is help practices learn how to do more in less time with less stress. And bringing on an associate can be a real way to make sure that happens if you're on the right growth curve, if you find the right person. And so now, what does he have? He's got a whole nother office right next to him that he's using to do CE on Thursdays and Fridays. And the man is driven to teach, and he loves it. He's fulfilling his personal mission to be able to really help dentistry continue to raise the bar, and he couldn't do it on his own. And then finally, Dr. Babcock, man, totally different situation. She's able to spend time at her lake house all summer. Well, not all summer, but she was able to go there without the stress of thinking, how's my practice going to survive? She's got peace of mind. And the coolest thing was she finally went on a vacation to Europe. So that's what it looks like when you nail it. Okay, all of them increased their wealth, alleviated stress for themselves, their teams, and honestly for their families. And they serve their patients better. And that's what drives us in this, is to help see these outcomes take place. And we see them happen all the time. And it's really exciting when they do. But it begins by having, starting with the end in mind and following this process that we laid out.
So if you want a guide how to get started, well, we would love to have a conversation with you. So schedule a time to talk with us at dentistpartnerpros.com. We'll also have a link here in just a minute that you can find a time if you'd be interested. Show up on that call prepared with your questions and ask how you can take advantage of our Action Taker free bonuses. And then start looking for dates to have DPP come out to visit your practice. Calendaring is the biggest thing. We will have time for questions. I saw a great question in the chat we want to get to. So
yeah, we've got about 15 minutes. And honestly, if you don't want a guide, just use this.
Yeah, use the model, use the process.
Use the model. Use the model. It works.
Yes, please. If you are interested, these are special bonuses that we're providing on this webinar today. We call them our Action Taker free bonuses. We'd love to sit down and go through an associate readiness diagnosis where we'll dive into your practice, we'll look at your numbers, and we'll give you a really crystal clear picture of saying, hey, this should be your next step, or this shouldn't be your next step, as far as should you bring on an associate, should you not. Lots of doctors think they do need an associate because they're feeling this overwhelm and busyness, when in reality, they're not there yet. So it can be really comforting to have an expert sit down and walk you through to help you understand if you're the right fit. So we're offering this for the first 5 practices that schedule a call by end of business tomorrow. We'll also provide a free marketing analysis from our friends over at Gargle. They're a leading marketing company that will provide complimentary marketing analysis. If you get on that call, we'll make sure that you have a link to get to their calendar as well. So we'd love to set up a call. If you're interested, feel free to email us at Bryton@dentistpartnerpros.com or Bob@dentistpartnerpros.com, or you can pull out your phones and scan this QR code, take a screenshot, whatever. That takes you directly to our calendar so you can book a time to talk with us today. While you guys are going through that process, we did have a question in the chat, and I think this is a great question. What is the best time of year to search for an associate? What a great question. So based on our experience, what we have found is heading into spring and early summer is the time that most people are switching jobs. That doesn't mean that's when you start looking. That's when hopefully you have started someone that you hired back in January. So the best time really is anytime that you're actually ready to bring on an associate. I'll tell you the worst time to search for associates is Q3, Q4, or not Q3, Q4, sorry, November, December. Holidays, people don't want to make decisions. They're waiting it out. They're waiting to see what their life's going to look like. And oftentimes they just put these off. So that's when we've seen the least amount of applicants, least amount of people applying to jobs, especially around Christmas time. But however, January 1, it picks up. People are looking, they're ready to make changes.
So don't use November, December as a time to just sit back and do nothing. Use that as a time to load up, get ready, launch ads. Okay.
Yeah. So that's great. So could you share some dental specific job posting sites? Yeah. So Dentist Job Connect is they're a great resource. They do just dentists, and you can find them. I think it's just dentistjobconnect.com. The other great place is to just every state has a state
dental association,
and they all have online listings. So that's a great one. That's where we found some really great candidates as well. So
and we used to have a lot of success with Indeed. We frankly don't have as much, and we don't really utilize Indeed a whole lot these days. Something happened to them after COVID, and you may have noticed that. But for us, at least for associate jobs, Indeed kind of lost its sizzle.
Yeah. So I'm going to say your name wrong, and I apologize. Denayan Shen asked, if I pay percentage production, what percentage is the ongoing rate in San Francisco area? Bob, you want to answer that?
Well, that's a great question. Without being able to dive into your numbers, it would be hard to say, but typically in California, what we've seen is it's between 30 to 34%. Okay. California has a lot of things going for it, but it also has Delta Dental, which has kind of come on and made life harder, especially if you're on Delta PPO. And if somebody is even on Delta Premier, but then they hire an associate that has to go into PPO, their rate of reimbursement for Delta through that plan is really not good at all. So typically you wouldn't get up to beyond 30% in that type of environment. But again, schedule a call. Okay. Use this QR code. We'd love to be able to sit down and talk to you and say, A, are you ready? B, what do you think? What do we think you could offer?
Yeah. Whether or not you want to use this as a service or not, we'd love to sit down and see if we can help provide some value for you. So
exactly.
Ruby, you said, can you please repeat the names of the personality tests you recommend? We are fans of, it's called DISC, DISC. You do have to go through an authorized partner. So if you would be interested and you'd like for us to issue an assessment for you, feel free to email us. We'd be happy to issue those assessments for you. And if you'd like training on it, we could discuss that too. But we use DISC. The other really popular one is Myers-Briggs or the Colby Strength Finder. To be candid, we like either DISC or Myers-Briggs. We found DISC to be the easiest to digest and to understand, which is why we like it. And we think it's really, really comprehensive. I think they do a really great job. Bob and I have been fortunate enough to provide a lot of training on it to some really great big organizations. And so we love it. And we're confident in the results that it provides. So DISC, DISC. Feel free to email us if you have questions.
And Bryton, if I can also add to that one of the ways that we use DISC, honestly, is not just for looking at the associate, but also looking at the leaders within the practice to see what their DISC profiles are, because that's part of this personality fit, which has to take place, is to know what their style is, so who would fit with them.
Yes, you do have to be careful. Same rules apply. You cannot hire or disqualify someone according to their DISC assessment or their Colby Strength Finder. You cannot hire or disqualify someone as a result of how they showed up in that. However, it is an extra tool to help us understand who's going to be the best fit for the practice. And if you have a doctor that is really indirect, hates confrontation, and which a lot of them do, and you find someone that's just a straight bullet, straight to the point, really enjoys using conflict as a way to solve problems, you can learn about that in the DISC assessment, and you can use that to help you ask better interview questions. They may not be a good fit for each other, but they still could be, but they may not be. So
Exactly.
That's why we use it.
Yeah, and also just to be able to take care of this one legal thing, if you will come up with this list of characteristics and then score against them, this can help you arrive at what those scores are. Okay, which is a really objective way of being able to figure out if this is the right person or not.
Yeah. Great question in the Q&A. Are you serving dentists in all states? Yes. Dentist Partner Pros serves nationwide. We've placed people from Jersey to Virginia, all the way to California, to Texas, to Utah, to South Dakota,
Minneapolis, Minnesota, all over. Yes.
We work nationwide. The process that we discussed earlier can work in your market. We understand that every city, every area is different. And it's not using those as obstacles or weak or points of friction. It's how do we turn those into strengths that make us unique? How do you advertise using that? So what's our fee? Great question. Our fee to do the entire white glove service, which includes the associate hiring system. So if you go back to the ideal associate blueprint, the white glove recruiting machine, the intensive vetting process, the win-win offer framework, plus not on here, the associate assurance guarantee, where we actually guarantee our results. If we hire and place someone in your practice and they end up not being a good fit within 6 months, we'll find a replacement for no additional fee. And the pay for performance promise, where we actually only ask for a 30% down, and then the rest isn't due until we placed and lived up to our commitment. To get started with us, it's just $10,500. If you look at all the other expenses in your practice and how much value an associate brings, that's a bargain. It really is a bargain, and it's a total change and shift on how the practice works. So the total entire fee is $35,000. Down payment to get started is $10,500. And if you have any concerns or questions about that, we also have another payment option that even makes that a little bit easier, which is a more of a monthly option. We don't want this to be something that gets in the way of you taking advantage of an awesome service like this, but it is very time intensive, and it brings a lot of value. So with value comes a price too. So hopefully that answered your question. If you want to ask more about that, please schedule a call. We'd love to talk with you about it. Mm-hmm. How much paid time off do you think we should be giving associates to be competitive against other offices? Great question. Bob, do you want to take this one?
Great question. At least 3 weeks initially, and you want to grow it up to 4. But understand that this is not paid time off the way that you manage an employee, where you're paying them while they're not there. The contracts are written in a way so that they know that they can take the time, but they're not being reimbursed for it. That in and of itself does create kind of to be honest, a regulator, because as a provider, if you're not chairside, you're not earning. And so you can offer that. Is it taken? Honestly, not as much. Okay. I would say most providers that are mature in the saddle, they are usually doing 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah. So Paige, I hope that answers your question. Yes, you're welcome.
You bet.
Yes.
You're welcome. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah. The way we typically look at that is just total days worked across a year. And we include in that, that they could take, 2 to 3 weeks off, if not more. Really, the whole point and the goal with this person, with this new associate coming on board, is to get them wanting to be in the practice and producing to the point where when they're producing, they're really producing, and they feel like they can take time off and it doesn't hurt them or the practice. So it's win-win. That's amazing.
Go ahead. You're going to make the point, so go ahead.
I was going to say that's one main reason why people bring on associates, because if you're a solo doctor, when you leave, your practice shuts down, which is why Matt Harmon mentioned earlier didn't take vacation for like 12 years, because he didn't he couldn't do it. He felt like he couldn't afford to. As a result, his family really took the
Yeah.
consequence of that,
Yeah.
and he
A
did
lot of
too.
things happen.
So
Hmm. Yeah.
um,
And this
go
and this
ahead.
may not be a question that was asked, but I just want to bring it up. We are not fans of having associates work more than 4 days a week. Some may work 4.5. DSOs are having them often work 5 to 5.5. And what we found, again, dentistry is really, really demanding, and non-dentists don't understand that. So we plan on, really an average of 16 days a week or a month, excuse me, and
Yeah.
196 days a year. That does give them time off over the weekends and other times to recharge the batteries. And that seems to be if your practice is successful, you shouldn't have to have a doctor that's working more than 4 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. If you are in a practice that has to do that, find other ways to make it worthwhile. Whether that's they do have the ability to take time off or whatever. Another thing, this is just kind of a best practice. If you're a doctor owner, do not hire an associate just to do the grunt work for you.
Yeah.
It will always lead to a failure rate, and on top of that, it is a win-lose mentality. Instead of saying, why don't they take all the grunt work, why don't we figure out how we both increase the type of treatments that we're doing in the production that we're providing. There's more to be had. You can grow the pie instead of trying to slice out bits for each of you. So think of it of an abundance mindset, and that really helps both of you to be working in the same trajectory. Okay, we've got 2 more questions, and then I think we're just about out of time. So I want to make sure Lindsay, that we have enough time to wrap up if you have anything else you need to add. So here's the first question. What's the suggested bonus? How do you bonus them? Great question. Bob, do you want to take this one?
Well, it depends if you're talking bonus as far as signing bonus or a bonus itself, because they're bonus based upon their usually adjusted production or collections. And so as a provider, that is their bonus to be able to work. Now, as far as signing bonuses go, if you're in an area that's hyper competitive and you feel like we've got to put something out there to be able to attract an associate to us, you see DSOs out there that are offering $50,000 to sign. I'm not a big fan of that because I think it's attracting the wrong type of person. Okay.
And it's tricky. Most of those are contingent bonuses where you have to lead up to certain things. So
Exactly. And you're there for 3 or 4 years. So
don't get scared of these bonuses out there. The smart, savvy people that are looking for jobs, they're not really. They are more looking for paths to ownership. And so which leads us into the next question. Oh, I will say one thing that we found to be really helpful is offering a moving bonus if someone needs to move or relocate.
If they got to relocate.
And that could be like $5,000 or something like that. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, but that just alleviates some of that stress of like, how can I afford to move my family across whatever they need to move it to. So David asks, how many years till buy-in typically? Great question.
Great one.
This is a huge, wildly variable answer. Most of the time, 2 to 5 years. 2, if you are hiring someone that you feel has had experience and you're confident. We've never seen it sooner than 2 years. As far as buy-in typically goes, one way that we'd also recommend for you is if you are wanting to do this path of ownership, there's a couple of different ways to make it win-win as far as valuating and how do we determine a price. We like just a simple value before they start, value at time of buy-in, and split the difference. We find that to be a little bit more win-win. So if you're doing 4 years, value it then, value it at 4, and split the difference. So hopefully that answers your question, David. But yeah, most of the time, 2 to 5 years is what we're seeing as typical buy-in. Okay, last question here. What if I pay them a flat daily rate plus bonus? What bonus will you suggest? We suggest using the daily rate as a minimum, but really trying to encourage them to get. So most of the way that most comp structures that we help create are either a minimum daily of $700 a day, $800 a day, whatever it is, or 30% of adjusted production, whichever is greater. the whole goal there is to get them on to that commission as soon as we can, but it gives them that safety net of saying, okay, if the practice needs a ramp up period to get me busy, then I've got that for 6 to 12 months, however long you agree. So hopefully that answers your question. If you're doing daily rates, I would highly encourage you to shift your mindset and say, how do I pay them on a commission basis? Because that's more win-win.
Right. We really recommend to do whichever's greater.
Yep.
If the practice is busy enough, within usually 2 months, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 1 month, the associate's already burst past that daily minimum and is producing a little bit more every month. The minimum guarantee really is more of a psychological factor than it is something that you should end up paying. If you have to, then there's a chance you're not as busy as you think you are.
Yep. Hey, Lindsay, we've hit our time. Thank you so much.
You did so well. Thank you so
Thank you. We
much.
love this. Thank you. This was fun. Yeah.
It's great. And we had so much participation, which was awesome. I'll be sending out the recording later today. So you can all watch your emails for that and you'll see it come through. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks
everyone for your time. Have a great day.